Hello and welcome to our Develop podcast. This is your host, Danielle Reynolds, your business development resource here at Whitley Penn. I am so excited to be with you all again as we continue to connect, learn, and support one another. Today we've got a fun episode that I've been looking forward to recording. Joining me is Buffie Campbell, Mineral and Asset Management Senior Manager based in our Dallas office. Buffie is a licensed attorney in the state of Texas and a certified professional landman. She specializes in the oil and gas and real estate industries as they relate to estate planning and title and contract law, and also has significant experience in implementing processes and procedures for energy clients. Buffie, you are too cool, my friend. Welcome to the Develop podcast, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I will make one alteration up there. I'm also licensed in North Dakota.
Oh, you are. Fun
I'm
fact.
an attorney in 2 states, yes.
Okay, I love that. And shout out to the show Landman that's starting this weekend.
Oh my gosh.
So that's your jam.
They're going to make
You're
us look really cool. Very cool out there. So.
Buffie makes all the Landman look cool. So let's start with a little bit of your background. So where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school and study? And ultimately, how did you get to being here at Whitley Penn and leading our mineral asset management group?
So I grew up in East Texas in a town called Longview, which is right outside of Kilgore, so pretty well known in the oil and gas space. However, absolutely nobody of my family did oil and gas. We have very small interests growing up. We're just a couple of dollars here and there. So that was never like a thought process for me. I went to University of North Texas for college and then law school at Texas Wesleyan, which is now Texas A&M. Never thought about law school until a friend approached me and said, hey, I work for an operating company. Do you want to come run some title? Sure. A very entrepreneurial spirit. So I just kind of was thrown into it, learned how to do title, set up my own law firm with that same guy. And we wrote title opinions for 5 years and then segued into mineral management after that.
I love it. And now you're leading our group, which a lot of people might not know. We've got the Mineral and Asset Management group here at Whitley Penn.
We sure do. We've had the Mineral and Asset Management group for about 3 or 4 years at this point. Me and Jason Fitzgerald started it in October-ish of 2022. We've been blowing and going since then. And then we just acquired 2 weeks ago, November 1st, Travis Property Management. And so their entire team has come over and joined our team. It's been really exciting.
So fun for you.
They're in our Houston office. So now we have Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston.
I love it. You're all over the place.
We are.
So definition, mineral asset management. Like, what does this mean? Who benefits from it? And really kind of talk to us about what mineral assets could be.
Okay. So your minerals are going to be your oil, your gas, maybe some condensate that's coming through that. In Texas, minerals are adjudicated as minerals. So at this point in time, that's what we're looking at is the oil and gas. So for mineral and asset management, I kind of consider ourselves the landman for the landowner. And I say that kind of in jest, but it's also very, very true. So we give them a competitive advantage in this whole space, kind of give them equal playing field, I suppose, with an operator, give them the knowledge base, the education, the experience in the oil and gas field for the benefit of the mineral owner. So when we're negotiating leases on their behalf, we know the terminology. We understand what these clauses in this language means and helps out the mineral owner so they're not just completely being taken advantage of in a field that they just don't know anything about.
Yeah, so really that's kind of like why managing these assets effectively is so crucial, right? Whether it's to maximize your returns or for whatever reasons.
There's a lot of people that make a lot of money on oil and gas, and they've inherited this from grandparents, from parents. Maybe it's been left to a charity, something like that. So we want to make sure that they are receiving all the revenue that they've agreed to in that contract, that things aren't being turned over to the state, that it's called a sheetment, that's not happening, that property taxes are being paid correctly so they don't accidentally lose it and just not know about it. It's a lot of money on the table for a lot of mineral owners, and we want to make sure that they utilize all of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to lose those minerals.
Right?
So can you give us an overview of maybe some of your key responsibilities and tasks? So if I'm got mineral rights or a mineral owner, like what would I be coming to you to handle?
So it can be a little bit from everything to maybe just a lease negotiation. But the vast majority of the time we bring on clients that really don't know anything about oil and gas, don't understand their minerals at all. They've got a job, they've got a life, they've got kids. They don't have the time to actually invest into this. We get it, totally understand that. So we are going to negotiate leases on their behalf, verify title, verify decimal interest. We are going to receive the revenue on their behalf, verify that they're being paid correctly on the wells, make sure any wells that they do have ownership within, they are actually being paid on. So we have a mapping system that allows us to create shape files, and then we can overlay the wells on that map using our software, so we can see everything that they should be paid on, and then verify that they are being paid on that and being paid correctly.
Interesting. So would they be considered more of a passive owner that are coming to you?
Yes, most of them are very passive, yes.
Okay, very cool. So how does one typically identify maybe and acquire valuable mineral assets? But I know you mentioned they're mostly inherited or maybe gifted, or are folks actively buying these?
There's a lot of aggregate buyers out there that are actually buying them, but I feel like the vast majority of our clients have inherited them.
Okay.
Or it's a charity that, still it's an inheritance type situation, but people are leaving their assets to charities at this point, or leaving a percentage of it to them, or even a life estate aspect to a charity. So,
or maybe donating them
altogether if they don't want to be in the oil and gas business or don't want to have that ownership.
So interesting.
Yeah.
So talk to us what are some of the risks associated maybe with owning these mineral assets, and does your team help kind of mitigate those risks?
This is the beauty of mineral ownership. There's not a lot of risk.
I love it.
It is, prior to drilling, it's an asset that's just kind of sitting there, hanging out, nobody doing anything with it, so zero risk, right? Because there's nothing happening. But once you execute a lease with an operator, they take on all the risk. They take on 75% of the royalties with that risk. So you're retaining, as a mineral owner, 25% generally. It could be a little bit less than that. But in general terms, we're going to say 25%. And then that operator takes on the rest of the risk, the rest of the revenue. Go in, go big, go strong, right? That's kind of what it goes.
And you're like that middleman to that relationship.
We are, definitely.
I love it. So fun. So what types of clients does our team here at Whitley Penn typically serve, and who's a good fit? I think you mentioned maybe individuals, could be family offices. And at what point maybe is a prospect typically coming to you and needing assistance to manage their mineral assets? Does it get overwhelming, or is there a certain part of where they're like, I need help?
Yes, it does get overwhelming. We have individuals, we have trusts, we have estates that are kind of in that probate section, trying to get out of that need some help. Family offices, foundations, charities. We have some aggregate buyers that we actually have as clients as well. But generally, if somebody inherits it, they either know, kind of going into that probate, grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, they had mineral interest. We don't understand it, and we need to at least know what's going on with it. We've had attorneys approach us that are going through the probate stage with those clients that just they need legal descriptions, they need title, they need something like that. So maybe we can provide help in that aspect as well, and we do.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to ask if most folks are coming to you having no clue, maybe even these assets were in the family, and all of a sudden they're like, bam, here they are. So are you usually having to go back to kind of make some corrections and adjustments, and what does that process look like?
We can go back. In Texas, you can do a look back period of 4 years when it comes to the actual royalty payments. So we can do a revenue kind of an audit. We will usually use the term audit on that, and just do a revenue look back. When it comes to title, we can go back as far as need be, all the way to patent for that title to kind of clear things up if we need to do that. But most people, when they receive it, it's just kind of that overwhelming aspect of, we don't even know what this is and don't have the time to look into it. So they'll just kind of hand us, this is everything that we have. And that's kind of where we run with it.
Do they want to learn about it, or is it more like you do you?
They want to learn to a certain extent. Most people want to have that basic understanding, but they don't want to get into the weeds. So as long as they know somebody is getting into the weeds for them, it's fine. It's kind of like when you do an investment and you hire maybe a fund manager to run that for you. You don't want to know all the ins and outs, but you want to make sure you're being taken care of.
Know enough to know enough.
You want those reports on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
You want to see your dividends. Exactly. So
is that kind of the cadence you're distributing reports at, a monthly basis to clients?
It's on a monthly basis generally.
Okay. So they're getting pretty up-to-date
Yes.
records.
Absolutely. It's pretty up to date. And then we also have a portal within our software so they can actually go in and look and see how much they're getting paid on the 12th of the month or the 15th of the month if they want to know what they've gotten paid.
Easy peasy. Are you working with a lot of wealth managers in that space?
We have.
Working with families or individuals too?
We have, absolutely. And we work with the Whitley Penn Wealth team as well. I mean, we've done a lot of work with them, and it's been fantastic. Yeah. And we've worked with the FLVS team as well when they have clients come over that need that full audit or valuation services, and then maybe we can take over or help them out with doing some research or valuations or whatever.
I love it. I love the cross-funding. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, if I was coming to you, what's the minimum amount you would do to support a client? And then what would be like, oh my gosh, this client needs everything. What would that look like?
So we do have clients that come over and they just want lease negotiation help. Maybe they just don't have a contract and they're a little bit confused about it. And so we can at least run that down and just do negotiation as like an agent or something on their behalf. But most clients want full management. They don't want to have to deal with checks coming in. They don't want to have to deal with division orders and reviewing decimals and understanding title and making sure they're getting paid over the long haul. And so they'll actually ask us to step in and do that on their behalf. And once they start seeing how much money comes in and how many assets they're having to organize and control and understand, usually that's when it's like, just please take all of it.
You're like, the messier the better.
Yes.
Which is what we always say. We love sticky. We love messy.
We love sticky.
Or else you wouldn't need us.
Exactly. And we like putting together puzzles in this industry, I feel like. And that's kind of what we do is we put together a puzzle of someone's family, their ancestry, the genealogy of that land is what we're doing. And it's really interesting.
Puzzler.
Yes.
I love it. So talk to us about some of the challenges that you see or typically deal with. I know maybe for a while there, environmental, social responsibilities really came into play. Are you still seeing that? Or what are some of the biggest challenges?
That kind of comes and goes with the environmental challenges. We have seen like methane become an issue. We've got really clean oil and gas in this country, which is fantastic. We have a lot of technology that is used to actually capture that methane and then store it back underground. So I think that's becoming less of an issue. There's a lot of operators that have jumped on that because it's potential to use that methane later on down the line and actually make some money off of it. One of the biggest issues that we have, especially for our clients, is when the price of oil or gas goes up or down. And then they start seeing that revenue change, and that up and down makes them a little bit uneasy about the whole situation. So we do a lot of educating and letting people know this is why that's happening. Maybe this is what's happening globally, or maybe this is something that has happened because of a merger between two companies, and we're just seeing that transition stage when it comes to actual production off of their particular wells. But like we saw in April, we saw $85 gas, and now we're at $60. I'm sorry, $85 oil, $68 oil now. Let's get those numbers correct. So we're seeing a little bit of a decrease when it comes to the similar production but lower pricing. So we get a lot of questions on that kind of stuff. What's happening and why?
I mean, it's the long game. Like you mentioned the investments earlier.
It's a long game.
Will you find that clients, I mean, maybe you do support them if they want to sell. You kind of have some advisory around that, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
But you're also like, well, let's not jump the gun too quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, you never know what state a client is going to be in. Sometimes they really just don't like oil and gas, and they want to get rid of it for that. Sometimes they've got maybe a family situation has come up and they need to divest these assets for whatever reason. We have a lot of resources that we can send these out to, whether it be an auction house that actually puts it online and gets tons of bids, or we have actual mineral buyers that we have worked with closely and that we can take it to them directly, and maybe they will give us a couple of different bids. So, we've got options.
You guys are a full resource. So you've kind of mentioned some things in technology, definitely like the softwares y'all use for clients. In your example with the methane and what we're able to do, how is technology as a whole transforming minerals and this asset management? And any predictions you're seeing for the future of the mineral asset market?
Technology has helped a lot. This is a great question. And one of the things that we really kind of hype that we've bought into is our mapping software. We actually use software that maps it and then controls the revenue as well. So we can create shape files on those maps. We can actually dig down into it and see if they're being paid on those wells, if they're not being paid on those wells, and can do a lot of title research on it. We can save and store documents within that, save the leases in there and run back and review and see what's going on. It makes our life a lot easier, but it also makes it to where the client can see what's going on themselves.
Yeah.
So if they have questions, they can pull that up, ask us some questions about it, and we can answer relatively quickly. We can put notes in there. The client can see the notes. It's a really interesting aspect. So it opens everything up. It's super efficient. It's very transparent. But it gives us really an inside view on those minerals, which we couldn't do without a map. Yeah. Previously at previous companies and 10, 15 years ago, I was just seeing the revenue side of it. So I could see the numbers, but I couldn't see the piece of property.
Where they were coming,
yes.
Like how are you getting to the numbers?
Right.
Which I think is really important.
It's really important. And seeing if you're being paid on that well, because you can physically see that well going through your piece of property on a map, makes it really easy to determine who you need to contact about that.
Sure. And then even like for passive owners, I think it gives them a little bit more power too. Like even if they want to be more passive, like they still actually have a general idea of what's happening, what's going on, why is it ebbing and flowing, going up and down. It paints that picture.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and they can also just make sure my entire piece of property is being covered. Every well is being accounted for, and we have revenue streams for it. Or we have a reason there's not a revenue stream. Maybe it's shut in. But we know that. So there's not a question.
I love that. So, okay, I want to talk about a few key topics you brought up when you were presenting at our energy conference, which y'all, if y'all have not heard Buffie talk, she's an amazing presenter. So I loved her presentation there. So first, let's talk ownership. And you mentioned this before, but decimal interest. What does this mean, and why is it so crucial for this to be accurate?
So the decimal interest is your actual percentage of ownership within that well. So it's going to take into account the gross acreage of that unit. It's going to take into account your actual ownership within that gross acreage, so your net acreage within that, and then also the agreed upon royalty rate between you and the lessee.
Okay, and are there ever like any discrepancies with this, and how does that impact the owner?
All the time. As much as every operator would like to say, we do everything perfect, there's a lot of title issues that could pop up with this, because when we're talking title, especially in Texas, you go up to Pennsylvania, you can go even further back than this, but I mean, we're going back to the 1800s for patent on title, right? We've got Spanish land grants, we've got Mexican land grants, we've got French land grants, and we have American land grants, and some specifically from the Republic of Texas as well. So we have to go all the way back in time to follow that ownership down, so we know if somebody has severed out the minerals, severed out the royalties, pulled out the ability to actually lease that property or not, or severed out the surface. I mean, we need to know what that ownership is, and it can be divested multiple times throughout that 150, 200-year time period when it was first severed. So following that chain of title down can be very tedious, it can be very difficult, and it can be very expensive. And we rely on a lot of operators for that information, but then they'll merge with another company, and maybe that same information didn't get transferred over to within the merger, or it was a smaller company that maybe didn't go back as far as they should have in title, and so we have to provide documentation for that. So there's always something that pops up. I think knowing your ownership, understanding your title, having that documentation is really, really important, so that you can confirm that decimal interest.
Man, y'all can go way back.
Yeah, when I talk about genealogy of the land, I mean, we can easily go back to the 1800s sometimes for that original severance.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yes.
You need to write a book. Okay, so next, deductions. What are typical deductions to minerals, and how does your team support here?
Okay, so deductions can be transportation, that can be marketing, processing, compression, gathering. That's going to be anything that takes the crude, the raw product, and gets it into the market, right? Okay. So there's quite a few different deductions that can come into place. We have language in our leases, and there's a lot of leases now that have cost-free language. I mean, from the mid-2000s, I would say, that really started. And that allows the mineral owner to not have to pay for the transportation or the marketing, the processing, all those deductions that they would normally have to pay for as post-production expenses. So the operator will actually hold on to that. They will take on that additional risk. But you have to make sure that that language is actually utilized the way it's supposed to be utilized. So you may agree to all those terms with that lessee, sign the documentation, get it recorded and everything, but somebody missed that when it comes to actually putting it into the operator software when it comes to paying out those royalties. So if someone doesn't include that correctly, you may get charged those deductions that you should not be charged.
And I've definitely heard you say
that.
Strong lease language is key.
Yes,
and obviously with your law background, I'm sure you're very particular with that, especially with your clients.
Yes. We actually have 2 different clauses that allows for cost-free deduction that we use just to make sure it's very, very clear. And then we also have really strong audit language that allows us to go back to that operator and review as much documentation and contracts that we need in order to verify that those deductions have not been taken.
Yeah, but so important. Okay, severance tax. I think you might have mentioned this earlier too, but why is this important to pay attention to, and what do owners need to be mindful of here?
So severance tax is a tax that is imposed by the state.
Okay.
It's for the extraction of those non-renewable resources. About 36 states, I think, actually take a severance tax off of oil and gas. There's not a lot our mineral owners can do other than be observant for it. So in Texas, and I'll just use Texas as our main example since that's where we're at, 4.6% is for oil, 7.5% is for gas. So just be mindful of what those numbers are to make sure that that operator isn't taking too much or too less. I mean, that would be even worse, right? If they're taking too less and then they have to recoup that at a later time. So.
Yeah. And I know you brought this up, but how much is collected from severance taxes, and what are they doing with this money? And I know you guys can't see, but Buffy and I are laughing about this because the number is crazy.
The number is crazy, especially in Texas. So we've had $80 oil for the past couple of at least last year. So in 2022, Texas earned $10.83 billion. That's a B, billion dollars in severance tax. In 2023, it was $9.28 billion. And the cool thing about severance tax is 25% of that goes back to the school system. So that's our education and our kids. And that's something that's really important to me because I have 2 teenagers and I would like to make sure they're being taught well and that their teachers get paid. So if you've got complaints about the education system, like, take it over to the Texas Comptroller because they just got $2 billion off of it.
And not using it.
And whether or not they're using it, we need to know what they're doing with it. We need to know how they're utilizing it and spreading that wealth across the state. It's a lot of money. So
is there no transparency around
there
it?
Should be. It's a little bit difficult to locate some of that.
Okay.
But it should be spread across the entire state. So that even counties that aren't heavy oil and gas producers should still be getting a percentage of that severance tax.
Yeah. Is Texas leading that as far as how much money they're getting, I would assume?
Yes. I mean, like, I think the next state might have been like Colorado it might have been North Dakota at like $2 billion, $1 billion, something like that. Nowhere close. Yeah, Texas just kind of completely blew it out of the water. And the interesting thing was, in 2022, that doubled the second highest severance tax year that we've ever had. So when you're talking, I think it was right around $4.5 billion prior to that was the highest, and now we're talking $10 billion. That's a huge increase in funding for our education and for our highways as well. So if you've got complaints about the highways, that's your money right there.
Lots of potholes. But it seems like they're always doing construction everywhere.
Always doing construction, but we got plenty of money for it now. So
we sure do. Okay, so what about property tax? When are you getting taxed on minerals, and what should owners be mindful of?
So you're going to be taxed on mineral ownership when you have a producing asset. And just about every state that has minerals is going to have some sort of a property tax tied to it. It may not be called ad valorem. It may be called property. It may be called like an extraction fee or something like that. There's different phrases for it in different states. But it's a county-based fee, and it's going to kind of go between 0.4% and 2.8%, depending on the county, depending on the state. But this goes back into the county's budget, which is great.
Okay.
Because that's how they create wealth within the county. That's how they bring in new businesses. It's how they fix streets that are specific to the county and build county buildings. It's how they pay the police and the fire. All these property taxes go into that.
Yeah,
so
that's so interesting.
Good resource.
Yeah, great resource. So you've mentioned this before, but working with some charitable exemptions and royalties donated and owned by charities. Talk to us about what you are seeing here and what the general guidelines are and what maybe organizations need to do if it differs from individuals.
Yeah, this is a relatively new one. So as of January 1st, 2024, the Texas legislature actually passed, it passed in 2023, it became effective January 1st, that charities can be exempt from paying property taxes. There's a two-part system for actually getting this exemption. So first they have to apply with the Texas State Comptroller and get charitable status. In order to do that, you have to have documentation from the IRS saying you are a charity and a 501c3 status at that point, maybe a 501c6 as well, but that 501 status of a charity, and then the comptroller will approve you as a charitable organization within Texas. At that point, you then apply at the county level, and they will kind of run down all the same traps, make sure you're a charity, and then they should be approving you for exemption status. We've had a couple of different counties apply this way and been successful. We know of one county in West Texas that doesn't like this.
Okay.
And so they're refusing to abide by it. That may change. We're still working on it, trying to figure out what's going on, but that's where we're at with at least one county that's not terribly happy with this news.
Okay.
It's a lot of money, so I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, most of them are successful.
Okay, that is great. Okay, so produced water, which was my favorite thing you brought up at our energy conference.
It's one of my favorite things right now as well.
So fascinating, y'all. And if you don't know, now you're going to learn a little bit, or at least a teaser of it. So fascinating when you talked about this at our conference a few weeks ago. But what in the world is produced water, for those of us that don't know? And who is using it, and how, and why is it such a hot topic?
I know, I never would have thought that I would be interested in produced water, but at this point in time, it's a really big deal. So produced water is the fluid byproduct of drilling. And I wish I could show you all pictures, because I actually have some really good pictures of produced water, but it's basically the brackish, salty, really gross water that comes out. It goes, essentially we take water and when we drill a well and shoot that water down, it's got some sand, it's got some chemicals in it, and that actually holds open the the fractures within the well. And then that water comes right back up. So that's like a super high level view of where produced water comes from. But we have to do something with that water when it comes back to the surface. It's non-potable water, so you're not going to be using it for drinking. You're not going to be using it for crops or for animals or anything like that. It's pretty gross. There's some desalination processes that they can go through to kind of clean it up and then reuse it for new drills if they want to do that. And a lot of operators have been doing that. But a lot of times they would just kind of ship it over into a frac pond and then let it evaporate. And that kind of leaves a lot of gross stuff out that's just open. Mm-hmm. But what we found is that in produced water, there are all these other rare earth minerals, one of those being lithium. And lithium is one of those really cool things that we use on a daily basis in batteries. So it's in our cell phones, it's in our iPads, it's in our computers, it's in our Teslas if you happen to drive an electric vehicle. So it's something that we use more and more now. And so now it is a commodity that we can utilize, and there's money in that produced water. So there's a case right now in front of the Texas Supreme Court called Cactus Water versus COG. And in this, they're actually having to determine if produced water is owned by the surface owner, who can then contract that out to make money off of it, or if it's owned by the operator. We've had amicus curiae briefs at this level from the farmers, from the ranchers, from the Texas Minerals, and royalty owners, from the operating guild, not a guild, but like an operating group. So a bunch of different people have signed in saying we think the court should go this direction or this direction. Interestingly enough, like the farmers, the ranchers, the royalty owners kind of all believe that this should go under the surface owner, and that they should have the rights to be able to contract out the produced water to where they want it to go and to make money off of that. And if there's lithium in it, we still have to determine if that's a mineral under Texas law, but there could be money there as well. And lithium is about $18,000 a ton right now, so that's a lot of money.
Yeah. So still TBD on who owns these rare earth minerals coming out from produced water.
We don't know who owns the rare earth minerals, and we don't know who owns the produced water yet. So hopefully we will have that answer in the next couple of months whenever the Texas Supreme Court makes that ruling.
Okay, I was going to ask how is this shaking out long term? So it sounds like maybe we'll know soon enough.
I sure hope so.
It would be really up
it would
in
be
the
nice.
air? You
Yeah.
think there's going to be a lot of back and forth on this? Because it's
Well,
a lot of money on the table, like you said. People
It's
are
a lot of
gonna
money on the
fight either
table.
way.
Yeah, it's a lot of money sitting there. And operators historically have been known to take this water because it's waste. I mean, you can't use it for anything else. It is considered waste by the Texas Railroad Commission. It's considered waste by the legislature as well. So we want to make sure that it's disposed of properly on top of everything.
Most importantly.
We do not want this water just sitting out. And so that is one of the problems with it being owned by the surface owner, is that they then have to figure out how to dispose of the water.
Sure.
And it could be selling it back to that operator. That's fine. And that's a negotiation they have to do. But we need to have some clarity on that.
Yeah. Did it kind of just come about? Or like who
Come
found the greatness of produced water and what was coming out about it?
So in this particular case, that was the surface owner ended up wanting to sell it to Cactus, and that's kind of how that one came up. But there's been studies over the past couple of years about lithium. There's a huge lithium deposit in Arkansas, and I think that kind of really pushed this along. Once we started seeing lithium in those areas, and I mean, 2 years ago it was valued at $80,000 a ton.
Wild.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so we've got Exxon over there in Arkansas now. We had Standard Lithium over in that area, really making a big deal out of it. Arkansas actually passed a law saying that the mineral owner owns the lithium.
Huh.
So we do have a determination in that area. So it'll be interesting to see if Texas follows or if they actually make it classified as something else.
Oh my gosh. Well, more to come.
More to come.
Produced
Lots more to
water.
come. It's going to be interesting.
I love it. Fascinated by it.
But I will say one more thing about that.
Yeah.
We are trying to put language in our leases to account for some of this. This is one of the reasons it got so interesting, because we didn't know how to account to our clients when they started asking us questions about that. So we started changing up some language, and we've talked to some operators about it and how they approach it, and then provided this language to them to see if it's something that they would be willing. And we've had some that accept it as is, and they have no problem with it. We have some that kind of kick it back and want to negotiate a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It's fascinating.
It really is.
Buffie, thank you so much for joining me today, sharing about our mineral and asset management group here and the services you provide. You are a wealth of knowledge. Loved our conversation today. If anyone is interested in learning more, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know we covered a lot, and it could be a lot. So if you have more questions, we're definitely here to be a resource and support you. Thank you for tuning in, and cheers to our mineral and asset management group.
Yes, it's exciting. Thank you. Appreciate it.